understand the weight, the scope of what they believe they've uncovered here, and that the law applies to everyone.
David, what you saw was the quintessential career DOJ prosecutor. He was in unfamiliar territory. That's probably the biggest audience he's ever spoken to in his life. His arena is the courtroom. But what he wanted to convey today was that this was a serious, professional, done-by-the-book investigation. And I thought the fact that he emphasized that, quote, we have a set of laws that applies to everyone. And he's basically saying this case was investigated at the highest level, using all the resources of the government, and that what they found was grave. And this much I can tell you, David, as a person who's covered DOJ, they know the gravity of the case, that we're in the midst of a presidential campaign beginning to unfold. And to take this step to target and indict a former president of the United States, who is also now running for office again, involves them essentially playing a role potentially in the election. They knew what that meant, and you saw in him today a person trying to project calm, but also that this was done by the book.
Not only that, Pierre, I took note that he took a moment at the very end there to applaud his colleagues at the FBI. And we know the FBI, for a number of reasons, whether warranted or not, has been under the microscope in recent years, and certainly during the Trump administration, trying to depoliticize this moment as best he could, Jack Smith moments ago, but applauding the help, what he said was the hard work, the around-the-clock work of not only prosecutors at the Justice Department, but people who work at the FBI.
Exactly, David. And what you saw today is a person trying to convey that the rule of law applies, that justice is being administered fairly. Also striking, David, that there was no Attorney General Merrick Garland with him today. That was on purpose. They wanted to portray him as the person who's solely been in charge of overseeing this investigation. And David, his background as a person, he started as a local prosecutor, made his way to the Justice Department, became a career prosecutor there. He headed the public integrity section of the Justice Department, which the job of that group is to investigate potentially corrupt politicians. He most recently served as the chief prosecutor at The Hague investigating war crimes. So this is a person, again, who's been behind the scenes, pursuing sometimes big cases, but never anything of this magnitude.
No question about that. In fact, the country has never witnessed what we're witnessing here today. Pierre Thomas. Pierre, thank you. We'll come back to you if and when we need to, the moment you learn any more information. Again, a statement delivered by Jack Smith moments ago, and this was a key line as well. He said, this indictment was voted by a grand jury of the citizens of the Southern District of Florida. Again, pointing out that these were members of the public at large, American people who voted on these charges. And he went on to say, I invite everyone to read it in full, this indictment, this 49-page indictment, to, quote, understand the scope and the gravity of the crimes charged. Let's bring in our chief legal analyst, Dan Abrams. Dan, what did you make of the statement from Jack Smith? And again, how important is it that he pointed out that this was Americans, a grand jury of citizens in the Southern District of Florida, which is now where we know this will play out?
Yeah, so two things. Number one, I was reminded, struck maybe even a little bit, just by his reminding the American public about the presumption of innocence. Yes, that is not some sort of shocking revelation that he's announced it, but I think it's part of the tone that he's trying to set here. And this goes to Pierre's point, that he's trying to make the point, we are going to do this one by the books. We are not going to implicate Donald Trump in the court of public opinion. We're not going to attack him in this press conference. We're not going to insult him in this press conference. We are telling you, go read the indictment, but remember that as a legal matter, he is presumed innocent. And I think that that was a very careful and very intentional effort. Now, with regard to the Southern District of Florida, this is a small win for the Trump team, that this case was brought in the Southern District of Florida as opposed to Washington, D.C. Is there an argument they could have made about why it should be brought in Washington, D.C.? Yes, there was. But there no doubt would have been a legal effort by the Trump team to move the case to Florida. And they might have won it, or they might have even gotten the case dismissed. And so I think that they erred on the side of caution, which is when you read the indictment, almost all of the actions taken, the alleged crimes, were committed at Mar-a-Lago in the Southern District of Florida. And so prosecutors decided it's safer to go there, even though it does give Donald Trump a small advantage in terms of possible judges. In fact, the judge who's going to get the first hearing is Aileen Cannon, someone who Donald Trump appointed as someone who made a very controversial ruling earlier as the investigation was ongoing about what access the FBI could and couldn't have to the document. She was overruled by an appellate court. Don't know if she's going to actually end up being the judge on the case itself, but already you have Donald Trump getting a judge who he appointed. You have jurors in the Southern District of Florida who would be likely more receptive to an argument from Donald Trump than maybe a Washington, D.C. jury. So it is very relevant as to where this is happening.
And just to cut through and to underscore that point, Dan, what you're essentially saying is Jack Smith knows that. He could have made the case to bring this case in the District of Columbia in Washington, D.C. Instead, they have proceeded by bringing the case to the Southern District of Florida, knowing that perhaps had they not done that, the Trump team would have argued to bring it there anyway. So in doing so, they took it to Florida without even the Trump team having to make that request. And he pointed out today, read the indictment. He told the American people, read those 49 pages. You'll understand, he hopes, that was his message, the gravity of what they've uncovered here.
Yeah, and I think that there are two things at play. Number one is it's probably the right legal decision to do it in Florida, even though, again, federal prosecutors do have some leeway, some arguments to make about why they can bring a case in one place instead of another case. But in a case where the world is watching, the last thing that the special counsel would want is for them to lose a big hearing or even, lo and behold, the case to get dismissed because they brought it in the wrong venue. So they clearly decided it is just not worth it. Let's take the hit that the jury pool and the potential judges may be a little better for Donald Trump in South Florida, but obviously they feel very confident in the case no matter where the venue is.
Dan Abrams, we appreciate it as always. I want to take this now to Florida, where this will play out starting Tuesday afternoon, 3 p.m., when the former president has been asked to appear to face these federal criminal charges. Again, the first time this has ever happened. We're all witnessing this together, and I want to bring in Aaron Katersky, our senior investigative reporter. And Aaron, take us through what the American public will see come Tuesday.
We're not going to see much, David. The former president is due here Tuesday afternoon, and when he arrives, he will be formally placed under arrest. He will be booked and processed, and then he is due on the 13th floor of the building behind me to go before a judge and enter his plea to these 37 counts. Based on his reaction to the charges so far, we assume that plea is going to be not guilty, and that will begin the speedy trial clock that Jack Smith talked about to try to get this case to some kind of resolution. How quickly it can be done, who knows? In prior cases, delay tactics have been a hallmark of the Trump legal strategy, but he is going to be working with new lawyers because the two lawyers of his that were handling this case resigned today following news of the indictment. David, we're told that security preparations began just after 7 o'clock this morning to make sure that the grounds here are going to be prepared for Trump's arrival. We've seen a number of federal and local officers patrolling here today and making the necessary logistical and security arrangements because the word of this case, just like the indictment in New York, touched off a lot of chatter online, some of it violent in nature, some of it threatening. I thought, too, it was noteworthy that Jack Smith, the special counsel, paid tribute to the men and women of the Justice Department, his team and the FBI, because those are the very people that came under threat when Trump's estate in West Palm Beach was raided back in August. So the authorities here are taking no chances, David, and when the former president arrives here on Tuesday, it will be a secure location. But there are no cameras in federal court, and so we are not even going to see him entering the 13th floor hallway. He will come and go in a motorcade, and that may be all we see here, David.
Aaron, another follow-up for you, and I know that for viewers watching us at home, they don't need me to tell them. Everyone understands, no matter where you stand politically and what your opinion is about all this, the gravity of this case. far more significant than what we witnessed play out here in Manhattan in the hush money case. And I don't mean to diminish the case, but again, these are very different things. The gravity of what we're witnessing these last 24 hours, much more significant. The federal level, criminal charges, the first time we've ever seen this happen. But one key sort of technical difference, Aaron, that I wanted to laser in on is I remember when we were on the air and you were reporting in real time on the Manhattan hush money case, the former president appearing in court, and there was that pause, that delay that we all were sort of on the air waiting. That was when he was actually reading in great detail the indictment in that case, the list of charges. It would seem what Jack Smith has done today is to try to preempt this sort of political vacuum, the conversation that would have taken place over the next several days, all the way until next Tuesday, had he not come before the cameras like he did just moments ago with this brief statement, and had he not issued this 49-page speaking indictment, is what they call it, to really lay this out in great detail to the American people, to try to knock down that vacuum, if you will. Obviously, there'll be all of the punditry that you cannot stop, but at least one key difference is the facts, as one side sees it so far, have been laid out in a way that we did not see in the previous indictment.
That's right, David, and it does give the special counsel a chance to have the American public digest this several days before the former president makes his initial appearance in court for his arraignment to enter that not guilty plea. It also, frankly, David, allows the former president to start thinking of a defense, not even necessarily a legal defense, but a political defense. And we've already seen that start to take shape as he's spoken out on social media and as he undoubtedly will this weekend on the campaign trail. And so it does give the special counsel something of a counterweight. Once he arrives here, his processing then could go quite quickly. Whether he's fingerprinted and photographed, we're not sure. Mugshots in the federal system are not released. We're not sure if one will be necessary. And then he is, in all likelihood, going to appear in court very quickly. Where he will be processed is across the street from the main courthouse here behind me. All of these buildings are connected underground, so in all likelihood, we will not see the former president outside at all during his arraignment on Tuesday, David.
And Aaron, just a reminder, viewers, if you will, again, there's always so much talk about political strategy when it comes to Donald Trump. For years, even before he became the president, during the Trump administration, and then thereafter. But putting political strategy aside, just remind everyone, if you will, the weight of the charges that have been listed in great detail here, these 37 counts. Political strategy will be very important, I'm sure, to the Trump team, but he faces a significant legal threat here. The legal threat here, he'll have to take into account, certainly. It's much more serious than any sort of political strategy.
Well, I was talking to one attorney who had been involved in consulting with former President Trump at one point, asked him what he thought about the indictment, and he just sent me a message to say it's bad. And you heard special counsel Jack Smith outline why. He said violations of national security law put the country at risk. And in the view of the special counsel, the charged conduct here seems to have put the country at risk. The former president's supporters and defenders may not agree with that, but the special counsel believes he's not only on firm footing with the law, but has the intent of former President Trump to willfully disregard it behind him. And that is the case that he says he looks forward to presenting to the citizens here in South Florida when the time comes.
And again, a presumption of innocence. We have said that repeatedly in our coverage, and you heard Jack Smith say that himself. Dan Abrams making that point as well. But again, Aaron Katersky, the potential punishment here, and I don't want to get ahead of ourselves at all, but when you look at the seriousness of these charges, the potential punishment here could be significant.
That's yet another distinction from his indictment in state court in Manhattan, David, where he faces 34 felony counts of falsifying business records. It's hard to imagine the former president facing any prison time in New York. Here, the charges under the Espionage Act and under some of the obstruction statutes that have been laid out by the special counsel are punishable in theory by decades in prison should the former president be convicted.
Aaron Katersky outside the federal courthouse, where we will see Donald Trump next Tuesday, 3 p.m., presenting himself before the judge. in this case, this 37-count indictment, an additional count for one of his close aides. I want to bring in our chief Washington correspondent, Jonathan Karl, because, John, you heard Jack Smith there essentially invite the American people to read through this 49-page indictment to understand the gravity, was the word he used, of the situation and of the evidence that has been gathered. You have been to Mar-a-Lago several times to interview the former president. You know the grounds, you know the very public setting, the nature of this. When Americans do read this indictment, when they get a chance and they see the reporting on it, just the images from inside Mar-a-Lago, the boxes, the locations, it's sort of stunning in scope.
It really, first of all, Jack Smith outlines the sensitivity of these documents. Documents that outline the military capability of the United States and our allies, and also the military vulnerabilities of the United States and our allies. Details about the U.S. nuclear programs, and then look where the documents were, according to Jack Smith. He talks about them being in the ballroom. We've seen that photograph. The boxes stretch out in that ballroom. I've been in that ballroom countless times for events at Mar-a-Lago. Also in a bathroom, in a shower. Documents found in a shower, in an office space. We know that from our own reporting to be his office space on the second floor in Mar-a-Lago. In his bedroom, documents found, and in a storage room. One of the images that strikes me in the indictment is a photograph that we learn from what Jack Smith writes here, that it was on the phone of Walt Nauta, his personal assistant, who is also charged in this case. And Mr. Nauta took the way it's described. You see the documents kind of spread out on a floor in some kind of a storeroom, and Walt Nauta takes the photograph and he sends a text message to another Trump employee and says, "I opened the door and I found this." And apparently the boxes have been stacked up, and they fell over. And there on the floor, and the photo is, blurred out a bit to protect classified information, but there on the floor in this photograph are classified documents just spread out, having fallen. One other thing that he mentions about Mar-a-Lago, I've been there for a variety of reasons, including to interview Donald Trump, but he talks about what took place at Mar-a-Lago during the period that these documents were there. And he says that there were more than 150 social events, including weddings, movie premieres, and fundraisers that drew together tens of thousands of guests at that facility. It's not a very big place. At that place where you had some highly sensitive classified documents strewn out over various rooms at the club.
John, you talk about Walt Nauta, the advisor, who's also included in this indictment, one count he now faces. And I just want to ask you about this because in the indictment, prosecutors describe another text. You were talking about one there in particular from Walt Nauta. There's another one, a text exchange between Walt Nauta and a Trump employee, during which Nauta says that Trump was tracking several of the boxes of documents and planned to go through them and asked for new covers for these boxes. And here was the text. He's tracking the boxes, more to follow today on whether he wants to go through more today or tomorrow. Another text from Nauta on January 2022 revealed that Trump was asking for new covers for the boxes. One thing he asked for with the new covers for the boxes, that's Monday morning. Can we get new box covers before giving these to him on Monday? They have too much writing on them. But again, this talks about, and it's an allegation here, and obviously the president will make his case, but the allegation here, and this is just one of so many descriptions of interactions with the former president, is that he was heavily involved with these boxes, with these documents, fully aware.
And with directing his employees, in that case, Walt Nauta, and also his attorneys, to conceal these documents, to prevent prosecutors from getting their hands on them, even after they had been subpoenaed. There's another section of the indictment that talks about Walt Nauta being directed to move some of the boxes to the Trump airplane in June of 2022. So before before that search warrant at Mar-a-Lago was exercised, that was in August, there were some of these documents that were boxes that were moved to the Trump airplane for Trump apparently to take with him when he went up north, as he does for the summer, to his club in Bedminster. Clearly, and by the way, one thing that's interesting there that I'm sure is catching Trump's attention is they say the reason they know that is from surveillance footage from the surveillance cameras, the security cameras at Mar-a-Lago. So you see that the prosecutors have had access to the images and the messages on his close personal aide's cell phone, also access to the video from his own security cameras at Mar-a-Lago. They can develop a pretty clear picture of what happened here. One other note, David, on Walt Nauta. He was the valet in the White House, a Navy veteran. He came up in the January 6th investigation because he was the person who first informed Donald Trump that there was an attack underway at the U.S. Capitol. He was the person that greeted Trump in the Oval Office when Trump returned from the speech he had that morning, and told him that he was unable to watch his speech because the television coverage had been interrupted to show the attack on the Capitol. So he's, somebody who has had a very close proximity to Donald Trump at the center of both of these investigations, the one we're talking about now, the documents investigation, but also the January 6th investigation.
And just to drive home this point that you've made, John, because you have been to Mar-a-Lago, when you hear about boxes of documents in a ballroom, a bedroom, a public bathroom, documents being moved to the Trump plane, you bring up the surveillance video that they talk about in this 49-page indictment. And just to be clear, that surveillance video does include a portion of time after the subpoena to say, look, we know there's more here, turn it over. And essentially, authorities have been told we did turn everything over. That's why that surveillance video is key, correct?
Yes. In fact, what I described going to the plane was when the FBI and representatives from the Justice Department had visited Mar-a-Lago to meet with the attorneys to go over what documents had been in their possession. This is before the investigation turned to a more hostile phase where they had to actually get a search warrant to come in and do that surprise search in August of Mar-a-Lago. And those boxes were moved just as Trump is meeting with the FBI to say, okay, here's what I have. You can take a look with my attorney's presence. Well, some of those boxes, according to this indictment, had been moved by his close personal aide to his airplane, and that process was captured, at least part of it, by those surveillance cameras.
Jon Karl with us here this afternoon. John, thank you as always. John Santucci, who has covered Donald Trump, the presidency, the candidate before. He won the election in 2016. And John, you've been in touch with sources at Bedminster, which is where the former president is right now, with those surrounding him, reading through the indictment. I wonder, and maybe you don't know this, but was he watching Jack Smith?
You'd have to assume as much. I'll be honest, David, I don't know. I can tell you most people that I've been talking to have said reading, trying to digest this, trying to figure it out. And also, you can see it from the comments Donald Trump has made in his social media platform. He is fired up. He is angry. He is attacked. We're not going to read the statements because they're full of misinformation, but he has attacked the special counsel, attacked President Joe Biden. He is in full war mode, as one person said. But absolutely, you have to imagine Donald Trump taking this all in, watching it. We know he is a consumer of news just the way you and I are. But I will say, David, one thing that's been interesting, there's a word that multiple sources that are still close to former President Trump have texted me, and it's the same word, sad. And the other one that's been pretty common, actually, two people wrote me, unnecessary. Many people writing, why would he do this? Why would he take it to them? And others saying the whole thing is just stupid. But the other observation that I got from one longtime, now former aide to the president, still keeps in touch with him, the person said to me, I can hear his voice when they read through the indictment. You could hear him saying, come here, let me show you this. And this person made the point to me, that wasn't just a one-time thing. Donald Trump would do that all the time in the White House, in Trump Tower. David, he did it to you and me multiple times, right? Let me show you something. That's the Donald Trump act, and clearly that is the act that has gotten him in big trouble here, David.
And some of your sources that you're speaking to, I'm sure not necessarily at Bedminster right now, and those who are telling you unnecessary, for example. Let me just ask you, are they talking about, why not just turn the classified documents back over to authorities when they asked for them?
Yeah, I think they're talking about both things, right? It's unnecessary why did you take all of this stuff? I mean, many people over the years have made the comment to me about Donald Trump, the hoarder, that he has kept things. I remember being in the 26th floor of Trump Tower and seeing the stacks of things that were just accumulated, and you couldn't even find a room to stand, actually, when you're in the room. It's rather hard because it's full of magazines, clippings, photos he's kept, memorabilia. I mean, Pierre used the word earlier, and I agree with it, trophies, things he wants to show off to people. But the unnecessary of it, David, you hit it right there. It's like, why not just give it back? And I remember asking a longtime aide that after the raid, because we could tell that they had communications back and forth with the special counsel and federal prosecutors at that point. And the aide made the observation to me, you know him, when he's told to do something, what is he going to do? The complete opposite. He's not going to give it back if somebody tells him to.
John Santucci, our thanks to you, John. I want to bring in Mary Bruce at the White House, our chief White House correspondent. Mary, have we heard anything from the Biden administration at this point? And obviously the second follow-up here is you have a lot of Americans saying, well, what about Mike Pence? Classified documents were found at his house. What about the President Biden, documents found in one of his former offices and at one of his homes? Those are questions the White House will face as well.
David, first of all, no, we have not heard the president comment on this. He has been asked about this indictment broadly, and he has made very clear on 2 occasions today that he is not going to be commenting on this. This White House essentially wants nothing to do with this. They are very aware that the former president and that his supporters are arguing that this is politically motivated. This president, Joe Biden, has vowed to protect the independence of the Justice Department, and he knows that anything he says or does or comment that he may make on this indictment, on these charges, could be used to try and undermine this investigation and this case and be used as a political cudgel against him and in this election. As for your second question, we have, of course, seen already Donald Trump's attorneys and his supporters, the former president himself, on his social media posts, trying to draw an equivalency, asking, essentially arguing that there is a double standard here. Why aren't we seeing the same kind of focus on the special counsel investigation into Joe Biden's handling of classified documents? There are some very critical and important differences between these cases. So let's make it very clear here. First of all, Joe Biden has said that he was completely unaware that these documents were maintained and held onto, that they were found in his former private office and in his private residence. He said he was surprised to learn they were there. And secondly, perhaps more importantly, when you come to the comparisons here, Joe Biden and this White House and his team have been completely cooperative with the authorities. They have said that the second they discovered any classified documents in their possession, they immediately called the National Archives. They turned everything over. Going forward from that point, they also cooperated with authorities on their searches of his residences, of his office, to make sure that they were being fully cooperative with this investigation. And they have cooperated with the special counsel's request, with Robert Hur's requests of his investigation since then. That is a very sharp contrast to the allegations in this indictment against the former president, who, as we have been discussing, knowingly, allegedly took documents with him, willfully concealed them from authorities, and conspired to obstruct justice, allegedly. David.
Mary Bruce at the White House. Mary, thank you. And just one more note on this before we let you go back to regular programming. And again, we'll work on this all afternoon for you for World News Tonight. But one of the things that Jack Smith said, I mentioned this earlier, he invited everyone at home to read the indictment in full to understand the scope, the gravity, in his words, of the crimes charged. He went on to say the men and women of the United States intelligence community, our armed forces, dedicate their lives to protecting our nation. Our laws that protect national defense information are critical. The safety and security of the United States, and they must be enforced. And with that, I want to bring in Rachel Scott for the final question here, because Rachel is already in Iowa. She's covering this race for president. And of course, the Republican field is already quite large. This is where the political strategy comes in for all of the other Republican candidates, Rachel, because they are reading what you and I have read here this afternoon. It's spelled out in this 49-page indictment. We're talking about classified documents that involve U.S. nuclear capabilities, the risks that the U.S. military and the U.S. as a country face militarily, whether or not we could come under attack, what we would do if we did come under attack. A number of these highly sensitive documents, and again, the reporting that we had even before the indictment today about the alleged plan that was talked about, potential plan during the Trump years to attack Iran. Again, all of this included in the indictment, the scope of what these classified documents sort of covered. So having said that, I know that you and the political team have reached out to every single one of these Republican campaigns this afternoon to ask them, are they comfortable with a former president holding on to classified information, in particular the information that involves our nuclear capabilities, our nuclear secrets, our military capabilities, and the potential threats we face as a country?
David, our political team has put that question to every single Republican campaign today, asking them if they believe it is appropriate for the former president to have and hold on to these sensitive documents, including U.S. nuclear capabilities, and whether they believe the indictment is justified. So far, words still trying to come in at this point because a lot of these candidates are doing what the former president is doing, what you and I are doing, what the American people are doing, and they are reading through this indictment for themselves. What we do know is that these Republican candidates so far have tried to walk a very fine line, not quick to criticize the former president. His own former vice president, Mike Pence, told me that he does believe there needs to be new leadership, but he also said that an indictment would further divide the country. He called the calls to sort of suspend Donald Trump's campaign premature. Former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, former prosecutor himself, wants to read through the details of this, and we will see what he has to say. He says that no one is above the law. What is clear, David, at this point is that Donald Trump can still continue his third campaign. He can still run for president. He's fundraising off of this. He has campaign events tomorrow. What is not clear is whether or not anything that is in this indictment, whether or not any of these counts that the former president is facing is going to change the way the Republican Party feels about him, the way Republican voters feel about him, or what Republican candidates are saying about him, David.
Yeah, and that's the central question, at least politically, and for your beat, Rachel, right, is whether or not these Republican candidates who obviously want to beat Donald Trump for the nomination, but who want to hold on, hopefully convince many of Donald Trump's supporters to somehow come their way over the course of this primary, whether or not they're going to be able to answer this question straightforward, in a straightforward fashion from you and the political team, and I'm sure from other reporters too. Bottom line, are they comfortable with the former president holding on to classified documents, allegedly, that include our nuclear capabilities and the risk we face as a country to come under military attack and what those responses would be? And again, those are just a couple of the examples. It's going to be really fascinating to see how they politically find a way to try to answer that question, given the gravity of what we're witnessing today.
It certainly will be, David, and they will have to answer this question directly. A lot of them have been playing this wait-and-see approach, wait to see what's in the indictment before coming forward and commenting on it. Well, now we have it. The American people have it. We have it. The candidates themselves have it, and they are going to be getting a lot of questions about this on the campaign trail, David.
It's going to be a big question moving forward. Rachel Scott, our thanks to you. I want to give the final word to Martha Raddatz, standing by live in Washington. Martha, you and I have been watching this unfold together here this afternoon, and of course, the gravity of the moment. You could see it in Jack Smith's face, someone who does not come before the cameras. We have not heard from him until now. He knows he's a political target. But as we said earlier, going out of his way to say he needs to be presumed innocent until proven guilty, but that we will, in front of the American people, make this case, 49-page indictment today, and the rest of the legal process to come. But given the scope and nature of these 37 counts, you know, we have said over and over again that we have never seen anything like this before, but the weight of this truly is extraordinary, Martha.
It truly is, David. And you've said again and again today that it was surprisingly serious. This was far more serious than any of us thought. Nuclear capabilities, possibly giving up human sources. This is the kind of information that the Russians would pay for, that they've paid for spies in the past. I'm not saying that Donald Trump is giving away this information to foreign countries on purpose. But what I am saying is having that lay around and having it available to almost anyone could not be more serious. When people write books, they have to get permission if they have been in the government, if they have maintained secrets. You don't go talking about them at cocktail parties. You never talk about them. Once secret, always secret. So you can't talk about classified information, and you certainly can't take it home. Right now, we have Jack Teixeira in jail up in Massachusetts because he shared classified information. Earlier this year, an Air Force officer was sentenced to 3 years in prison for taking home classified documents. That tells you just how serious this is, and we have a former president of the United States charged with the same thing.
Martha Raddatz in our Washington Bureau. Martha, our thanks to you and to the entire team this afternoon and their great care in reporting this out. Our coverage continues on ABC News Live, abcnews.com. I'll, of course, be back with the entire team for World News Tonight a little later this afternoon. I'm David Muir in New York. Until then, good day.
This has been a special report from ABC News.
Prescription. Charity, you're the next bachelorette.
I can have my happily ever after.
So many nights. I'm here to find my husband. Oh my God. I'm going in, heart open. You got me in love.
The beehive just exploded.
I'm not here for the foolishness.
You did me dirty.
This is not like a game.
You're taking the rose away?
You're not a man. Send to the airport.
This is the hardest thing I've ever had to do.
Maybe you should just trust that Marshall knows what's safe and what's not safe. He's the one that's lived his life. He's in a much better position to judge than you are.
I want to know and trust my father, but I can't do that when he's so closed off.
Well, he needs to trust you too, Curtis. Give the relationship time to grow. Put in the work. Maybe then Marshall will disclose the things that you want to know. But mark my words, baby, if you sneak around in his private business, there will be no chance of that happening.
Curtis did ask me to interview you for this job. And I was happy to oblige because I need a jazz musician, and he thought you'd be a really good fit. I agreed, and so, I mean, I don't know, is it so terrible your son's just trying to help you out?
I suppose not.
Look, if my friendship with Curtis complicates things at all, you feel free to walk away for sure. No harm, no foul whatsoever. I just gotta look elsewhere, I guess.
I don't want to be hasty. The job does sound interesting.
Okay, good. Look, if we are gonna work together, I do have to tell you our company's HR policies. Aurora has got contracts with the government, and due to their sensitive nature, I have liaison with intelligence agencies to do in-depth background checks just as a precaution.
Wow. Is all that really necessary?
Yeah, I'm afraid so. It's a condition of employment, standard company policy, just to make sure there's no security issues or clearance issues, anything like that. It's pretty simple. HR sends you some forms, you just put in past employers, your past addresses, your, I don't know, aliases in case you performed under a stage name.
Yeah, I see. You know what? This job doesn't sound like I'm gonna have enough time for my own music. I'm gonna have to respectfully decline. I hope there are no hard feelings.
No.
You know, I hope to see you at my gig.
Absolutely, I look forward to it. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, sure thing.
What you said about me feeling guilty. You're right. Will and I, we felt really guilty when we realized our feelings for each other, and we hated that it would hurt you. So we put off telling you for what we thought were the right reasons, but it was still dishonest. And then when you said that you slept with Brooklyn, it just, I don't know, it seemed to balance the scales and then let me off the hook a little. And so I'm sorry. Willow married me because she thought I was dying. And then when I found out I couldn't walk, she stayed with me to give me hope, even though she was in love with you. You know, I will always wish you guys didn't lie to me. But I completely understand why you did it. Why is it when we try to do the right thing, we always end up lying? It's definitely counterintuitive. Well, you know what? When it comes to doing the right thing, you definitely win. I mean, this is the second child you saved, right? Yeah, but you and Willow kind of saved my life, so I guess we're even. Oh, yeah, thanks, but not even close. Okay, then why don't you help me close that gap by loading this into my car? Oh, great. Oh, okay. Deal.
You mind if I hang on to this?
No, not at all.
Did Betsy know about the spare key?
No. I mean, not to my knowledge. I guess Franco could have told her, but I can't imagine why.
Oh, what about the boys? You think maybe she would have checked in with one of them? Maybe they could have told her?
I haven't spoken to her. And, I mean, how weird would that be if she contacted either Jake or Aiden?
Right, and Jake and Aiden, they didn't mention anything when you checked in with them, right?
I didn't tell him about the break-in. I just wanted to make sure they were okay.
Right.
I never considered that Betsy could be using my sons.
Well, hey, in case one of the kids is involved, I'll keep a low profile on this. All right? At least take that worry off your mind.
You were looking pretty good out there, girl.
Who knew it would be so much fun and feel incredible to throw an axe? I mean, who came up with this business?
I think a lumberjack.
Well, if only we could throw axes at all of our problems. Although, I guess in Sonny and Nina's case, that might not be a very good thing.
Do you guys really think it's a good idea to drink beer and throw axes at the same time? I do. Okay, good. Speaking of Sonny, I just signed away all my claims to community property.
Do you really think that's a good idea?
I just wanted it to be over, and I just want to move forward. And you think you can? Not right now. I can't move past all the damage Nina did, no matter how hard I try. And I don't think I'll be able to move past it until Nina pays.
I don't blame you. But Karma is going to take care of this. Nina will get what's coming to her.
Karma takes too long.
Honey, it's not healthy to focus on revenge.
You know what? I think Olivia's right. You have got a new life ahead of you. Why don't you just focus on that?
How can you say that to me? I would never hurt Wiley.
Nina, I don't doubt your love for Wiley. I just never know what I'm going to get with you.
Well, know this. I think about him all the time. And I miss him every single day. I realize that I have made mistakes. It might be hard to believe this, but I am learning from my mistakes. Well, and I promise I will be more forthcoming in the future.
I want to keep the door open for Wiley to have a relationship with you. But Michael is another story, and I'm starting to understand where he's coming from.
Do not keep me from my grandchild.
Who says you can't go for bold without going broke? Get the brands you want, the prices you want, whenever you want. TJ Maxx, where you can always afford to be you to the max.
Darlings, if you've been paying attention, it's easy to see prices are going up on just about everything. That's why you need to do your wallet a favor and call CarShield while you can still get last year's pricing. That's right. One call to CarShield now locks you into 2022 prices, so you can have peace of mind knowing that you're not only protected from mechanical breakdowns, but also from those rising rates. If you're driving an out-of-warranty vehicle, CarShield offers plans that cover up to 6,000 parts and systems in your car, truck, or SUV. Why would you pay for expensive repairs? Call CarShield now before a breakdown.
Being an essential worker and a mom of 3, finances can be very tight at times. If it wasn't for CarShield, I wouldn't have my car.
With CarShield, I don't worry about the check engine light anymore.
CarShield saved me $2,200.
CarShield Administrators covers expensive repairs, so I don't have to.
It's so simple. A plan through CarShield means when you have a vehicle that needs repairs, their administrators got your back. But wait, darling, there's more, lots more, especially if you love extras like me. See, I love that my plans include 24/7 coast-to-coast roadside assistance, courtesy towing, and rental car options too. Darlings, expensive car breakdowns will happen. The difference is calling CarShield before they do. Listen to your Auntie Vivica and call CarShield now to protect yourself from rising rates and costly repairs. Call now and get yourself a free quote.
It's not a matter of if your car will break down, but when. And you need to call CarShield now while you can still lock in your 2022 pricing. Their price lock guarantee means your monthly price never goes up for as long as you cover your car. Get help paying for expensive repair bills by calling CarShield now. Call 800-237-4000. 800-237-4000.
You've evolved. You've changed. So have we. That's why new Dove Body Wash now has 24-hour renewing micro moisture for continuous care. New Dove Body Wash. Change is beautiful.
Keep It Quilted means you keep it the best. 3 layers of plush comfort you can see and feel. Keep it quilted because the best parts of your life deserve the best. So don't settle for anything less. Keep it quilted with Quilted Northern.
Maybe what Drew and I had planned is the wrong move.
Yes, just be patient. A little while longer, and I believe you'll learn everything you need to know. And then you can make better decisions to keep all of us safe.
And that's all that matters. Excuse me. Drew. Hey, Drew, I was just about to call you.
Yeah, I got news about your dad.
Yeah. Never mind that interview.
Too late, we just finished.
How'd it go?
Marsh turned me down. He wouldn't agree to a background check. I'll look into Betsy's whereabouts last 2 months or so.
I just finished talking with the officer. I showed him the hiding place where the key was.
Great. Thanks, Cam. Maybe don't touch that painting for a little longer. All right, see ya.
Thanks. How you holding up?
The thought that Betsy may have been here for months, using her knowledge of me and Franco to play these games, it's just creepy. I mean, has she been breaking into my house this entire time? Following me to work, getting my key, bringing it back? I've been working too much. I mean, she could have been here when my boys were asleep. She could have hurt them, and I wasn't here to protect them.
Hey, Mom, I could protect us just fine. Okay, in fact, you know what? I'm gonna get someone to cover my shift at Kelly's tonight. I don't want you to be here alone.
No, I don't want you upending your life over this.
All right, bunk here for a couple days. Just till Dante sorts all this out, all right? You know, Chase has been bugging me about spending some time with Violet, and she'd like it. More candy, stay up late, and I think Chase could really use her company right now.
It's not an imposition.
Not at all. Under the circumstances, I'd feel better if I stayed.
Well, then it's settled. I'll get ready for work.
Thank you. I don't want him taking this on. Do you think I'm overreacting?
No, you're doing the right thing. And I'll stay here until you feel safe again.
I'm gonna go with my initial instinct. I deserve a fresh start.
Yes! Cheers to that!
Here, here. Okay, watch this. With this throw, I release myself from Sunny and Nina. Good riddance.
I am not saying that you will never see Wiley again, but we need to let things settle.
What exactly does that mean?
I don't think there's a path to you seeing Wiley on Saturday.
Well, let me remind you, Willow. As Wiley's biological grandmother, I have rights in this state. I haven't pushed it out of a gesture of goodwill. But if this is the path that we will be taking now, that you and Michael get to decide to block access to my grandson, then you leave me no choice. I will fight for my rights.
Everybody standing before us all carries the same secret.
From executive producers of Love is Blind, 12 A-lister relatives will spin a web of deception.
Our contestants are not famous themselves, but they're all related to someone who is.
We're talking huge names.
He's won a Grammy,
An Emmy,
an Oscar.
Tom Hanks may be too famous for this house, but his celebrity relative isn't.
You must protect your secrets at all costs.
They'll need all their talent to win this game of fame.
This is a lot.
That's so cringy.
And they'll risk losing it all.
I'm here to play a game, and I'm here to win.
You can't trust anybody here.
Can you guess who's related to who?
This whole competition will require strategy, keen observation, and a healthy dose of lying.
I think your celebrity relative is...
She's screaming, she's screaming, she's screaming.
Claim to Fame premieres June 26th on ABC and stream on Hulu.
track, identify